glad you're here. Thank you very much for joining me. I find it hard to believe that President Trump didn't know about the coming drone attack there in Russia that took 18 months to organize and deploy. And then we had Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal that visited Ukraine just 2 days before the attack. They were there on May 30th. Supposedly, the key topics of the meeting included a U.S. legislative initiative to strengthen sanctions against Russia, coordination of diplomatic efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace, and the deployment of bilateral relations between Ukraine and the United States. They also discussed imposing sanctions on Russia, including a 500% tariff on goods from countries purchasing oil, gas, and uranium. They also advocated for $60 billion in U.S. funding for Ukraine, which some sources claim was unauthorized and intended to influence Ukrainian policy or escalate the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Recent allegations, particularly from social media and certain web sources, claim that Senator Lindsey Graham violated the Logan Act through his trips to Ukraine, specifically his trip on May 30th, with Senator Richard Blumenthal to meet Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Critics argue that Graham, as a senator, lacks individual authority to engage in such foreign policy discussions, as the Constitution designates primary foreign policy powers to the executive branch. Others contend that senators, as part of the legislative branch, have a constitutional role in foreign policy oversight, including engaging with foreign leaders. Graham's actions, coordinated with other senators and tied to legislative initiatives, may fall within his official duties, thus not violating the Logan Act, which historically targets private citizens. I don't know. What do you think? The fines, the penalties for doing this are a drop in the bucket. The maximum penalty would only be 3 years in jail and fines. I do think it's odd that he was there just 2 days before the drone attack there. They're not talking about the train derailment. No one has claimed responsibility for 2 bridges that were collapsed because of explosions. In the 2 separate incidents, one was a train carrying cargo, and the other was a passenger train. Both bridges were in the Kursk and Bryansk region, bordering Ukraine. 7 people were killed on the train, the passenger train, which was carrying 388 people. I believe about 69 people were injured, some of them children. In the Kursk region, a railway bridge collapsed, derailing a freight train. That track has been known to carry military troops and weapons and other different types of military equipment. In that accident, the locomotive driver suffered leg injuries, and the entire crew was taken to the hospital. No one has claimed responsibility for those 2 bridge collapses. And we're all waiting to see what Russia's response is going to be with the drone attack to either Ukraine or NATO. Now, supposedly, the military planes that were owned by Russia, they're now saying that 10 were destroyed and 31 were severely damaged. Russian President Vladimir Putin indicated that Moscow would respond to these attacks and the bombing of the Kerch Bridge in Crimea that was also attacked. The Kremlin has described such Ukrainian actions as escalatory, and Russia's state media reported strikes on Ukrainian drone production and storage sites as immediate countermeasures, so they're going to do that. A more robust military response could involve intensified missile and drone strikes on Ukrainian military infrastructure, supply lines, or critical civilian infrastructure, as they have done in the past. Russia could focus on disrupting Ukraine's ability to conduct further drone operations by targeting command centers, intelligence facilities, or Western supplied equipment. The Kremlin has accused Ukraine of relying on NATO technology for these attacks, which could prompt strikes aimed at neutralizing such capabilities. And I'm sure everyone is worried because Russia has modified its nuclear doctrine, lowering the threshold for nuclear use in response to conventional attacks supported by nuclear-armed states such as the US or UK. Putin's advisor, Dmitry Solov, has stated that Russia would interpret such attacks as necessitating a response, potentially including nuclear options, while tactical nuclear use remains unlikely due to global repercussions. Russia may escalate its nuclear rhetoric or deploy additional nuclear assets to Belarus in response to Ukraine and NATO. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has cautioned that Russia's nuclear threats should not be dismissed as a bluff, suggesting that any perceived escalation by Ukraine use of Western long-range missiles could trigger severe consequences. At the least, Russia may intensify hybrid warfare tactics such as cyber attacks, GPS jamming, or sabotage of European infrastructure, such as the undersea cables or energy facilities, to indirectly pressure Ukraine and its supporters. They've done these tactics before, and they'll probably do it again now. The Kremlin has criticized NATO's role in their support for Ukraine, particularly in the authorization of long-range missile strikes into Russia, as direct participation in the war, they say. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and other officials have warned that NATO's action risks a broader conflict, potentially even World War III. Russia may respond by increasing troop deployment near NATO borders or conducting provocative military exercises. Currently, Russia is rapidly rebuilding its military production of 1,500 tanks and about 4 million rounds of artillery shells annually, with some analysis warning it could be getting ready to challenge NATO's Baltic states by maybe 2027 through 2029. Germany has also stated that Russia is preparing war with NATO again by 2027 through 2029, if not earlier. Russia's deployment of nuclear weapons to Belarus and its development of the new missile system like the Orshik hypersonic missile are intended to deter NATO. The use of such systems in Ukraine, such as the Dnipro strike in November of 2024, signals Russia's willingness to escalate technologically to counter NATO support. Russia more than likely will continue snap military exercises, airspace violations, and troop movements near NATO borders to keep the alliance on edge. NATO's push for members to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP, as advocated by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, has been noted by Russia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov called such moves dangerous, suggesting they undermine peace efforts. Russia may respond by accelerating its military modernization or seeking to exploit divisions within NATO, particularly within the members like Hungary and Slovakia, which maintains closer ties to Moscow. Now, different analyses say that despite its reconstruction efforts, Russia has suffered significant losses in Ukraine, an estimated 500,000 killed or wounded. Its economy is strained by sanctions and reliance on China and other partners may not fully compensate for Western isolation. I don't know if that's true or not, but what do you think? I do know they got a lot of drones from Iran. Yeah, North Korea has been sending troops and weapons and ammunition, and I'm sure China is doing the same. Russia's actions have unified NATO more than expected, with Finland and Sweden joining the alliance in response to the Ukraine invasion. This supposedly limits Russia's ability to fracture NATO diplomatically. Russia's nuclear threat and aggressive rhetoric carries the risk also of miscalculation, potentially drawing it into a direct conflict with NATO. Well, according to different analysis, different information, the one from Germany says that they are preparing war with NATO by 2027. The Trump administration, their push for a ceasefire and reported frustration with Putin's, calling him crazy, could influence Russia's calculations. Trump's comments calling the Ukrainian drone attack as badass, but warning of Russia's retaliation suggests a delicate balance, with the U.S. seeking to avoid escalation while supporting NATO's unity. If it comes out that Trump or Graham or anybody else actually knew about these drone attacks, I mean, they planned it for 18 months. How could the U.S., our security services not know about such a plan? How could they not know? Russia may also put pressure on NATO's flank. Limited provocations such as troop movements or cyber attacks near NATO's eastern border could test the alliance cohesion without triggering Article 5. Russia's response to Ukraine and NATO will likely involve a mix of military retaliation, nuclear posturing, hybrid warfare, calibrated to maximize pressure without provoking a full-scale NATO conflict. We have definitely crossed Russia's red line. How much longer will Putin be patient? The Kremlin's focus on NATO's expansion and Western support for Ukraine suggests that any escalation will aim to deter further aid to Kiev, while exploiting perceived weakness in NATO's unity. Well, when you got people like Lindsey Graham and other war hawks pushing for war, I don't know. I think we all should be prepared. What are your thoughts? Put your comments down below. Do you think Trump actually knew? What do you think Russia's response is going to be? Please put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you later. God bless you. Bye.